Thank you for listening to the BjjBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back to the BjjBrick Podcast. This is episode 266. My name is Byron. This episode we're talking about blue belts. I've got two of the Blues brothers with me, Joe and Gary. What's happening, my friends?
I feel like I should be a little more familiar with the Blues brothers. That's kind of our era, right, Gary?
Yeah, and the bad thing is, I know one of them's name's Elrod. I just don't know the other one. So I'm not very familiar with the Blues brothers.
I'm doing good, though, Byron. How are you?
Doing well. And
yeah, I think Joe and I are more like the Black and Blues brothers. You know, when you're on the mats in your 50s, we do get some bruises and some injuries.
Well, it feels that way sometimes.
The Blues Brothers is the 1980 hit. I've watched it several times as a kid. It's a fun movie. And did they redo it ever? I don't know if they've...
I don't think they've redone it.
Okay.
Like every other movie.
Yeah.
Yep, it's good. It's got Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi in it. And I recommend it, and I guess for you guys, too.
Byron gives it 2 thumbs up.
Shoobity bop bop bop. We'll throw out some blues here and there. No, we're talking about blue belts today. That's the Blues Brothers connection. And we did an episode last month. We talked about white belts and just kind of giving some advice and some thoughts and helping you guys out a little bit. This month, the last episode of the month, we changed things up and we talk about a topic. And why not the natural progression from talking about white belts last month to blue belts this month? So we'll get to that in a minute. We do like to start off with our quote of the week here.
This week we have Gus Lee. And I'm trying to say that slow and fast to see if you set me up, but I don't think you have. And what I'm talking about is Byron likes to put in some fictitious names and make me say it and look like a fool. But hopefully I got away this week. But Gus Lee said, "Living in fear is not living. It is tantamount to being prisoner of our own weaknesses, constantly awaiting the next injustice."
I think we all have certain things we're nervous about or fearful of. The one that really makes me, that reminds me of this quote is when I was a child. Like, I was afraid of shots, like, you know, getting a flu shot or getting a tetanus shot, whatever it was. That, like, if I knew I was going to get a shot later on in the week, my whole week was ruined. And then when I got a shot, I would say, okay, when's the next one? It's a year or 2 years. And then okay, I got plenty of time to wait. But then I would, every now and then you'd ask a question, you know, hey mom, when am I getting my shot? And if, you know, it's a month or a week, then it kind of just kicks up that fear again. And, you know, it's just like holding you prisoner, you know, like it affected the way I would think about it. Of course, now I'm not afraid of shots. I don't know. It seems like the needles are sharper, to get off topic, but they don't hurt at all. But I remember being like deathly afraid, not deathly afraid, but just it would ruin my week because I was going to get a shot. And I could think of a lot of other things maybe that cause a little anxiety and kind of diminish the quality of life today for something that's going to happen in the future.
Man, what a way to grow up, Byron. That's funny, though. It goes to show how much power your mind have, right? Because the shots really don't hurt that bad, but you build them up to be this huge deal. And so a little thing like a trip to the doctor is affecting large time periods of your life. That's crazy.
Yeah, and just, so if, I think the easy transition to jiu-jitsu is, if you're listening to the podcast, clearly you're interested in jiu-jitsu, maybe you're thinking about doing jiu-jitsu, maybe there's, you know, some anxiety that surrounds that, odds are you're building that to be more than it's worth. Go check it out. and, you know, it's kind of weird. I guarantee, we've got listeners listening to this today that have never trained, who just love the idea of training, and maybe they're isolated from a gym and they can't get, and that's their situation. That's okay. But if you're able to train and you're nervous about it, stop being held hostage by that and go train. You're listening to an episode that's about blues brothers. I almost said blues brothers. About blue belts. You're like clearly interested. You want to get good at it. Go back, listen to the white belt episode. But really, if you're nervous about trying jiu-jitsu or you're nervous about competing, competing is largely the same thing you do at your gym. It's basically rolling with somebody, except for you don't know them, and you don't really know what their game's about, and they don't know your game either.
I bring it up all the time, how I chickened out the very first time, I was going to train. I talked to the instructor, told him I was going to show up that night, and, I drove on by it. To be honest, I was scared, I was a prisoner of my own weakness. And, the next training class was like 3 or 4 days later. This was a long time ago when you might have had 2 to 3 classes a week. It's not like today where you have multiple classes, every day of the week. So I had like 3 or 4 days where, I was mad at myself because I didn't go in. I didn't stop. I drove on by. So I had like those 4 days or 3 days between training sessions that I was mad at myself, but I was also scared, so I just remember, having that adrenaline rush for like 3 days till I got on, till I finally made it in there. And, I made it in there and trained, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I really wanted to do it, kind of like what you're saying there, Byron, but, I had some fear into my head that I was going to get choked unconscious or that I was going to look like a fool. And, the one thing I've noticed about jiu-jitsu, if you're afraid that you're not in shape or if you're not very athletic or very flexible and afraid you're going to have trouble doing the movements or some of the moves, jiu-jitsu people are some of the best people I've ever met. They're always there to help you. Everybody I've met has never made fun of me when they'll make fun of me as Byron and Joe do, but, that's good-natured, friends make fun of each other. But if I'm having trouble doing a movement, everybody I've ever dealt with will take some time and help me out. And even if I don't get it, there will be so much encouragement. Nobody made me feel, inferior or anything of that sort. I know that I look at it that anybody who steps out on the mat, I have so much respect for that person because it's not easy to do. And I tell you, I was the guy who was afraid to get on the mat the first time. And so I know what it can be like. I lived it. And, I do have so much respect for anybody. I don't care who it is that steps on that mat and gives it a try.
Absolutely. Hey, I won't close this out by bringing the quote right to the center of the mat where we actually do the training. This is where I thought you were going to go with it originally, Byron, is, don't put such a high priority on winning or having success when you're training and then being afraid to not have that success. In other words, don't go out there and like, oh, I don't want to get swept. I don't want to get submitted. When that becomes your highest priority, sometimes then you are rolling hesitant and you're not trying anything. You can kind of see a guard pass, but you're like, God dang, this guy just sweeps me every time. So you don't try it. And if you roll that way, yeah, you might not get swept or you might not get submitted, but you're not going to progress as quickly either because you're not trying things.
That's a great point, Joe. I remember not too long ago, one of our listeners wrote in a question to us, and I can't remember the exact question, but I think he's a white belt and he was having trouble in a blue belt's guard. And I just remember, Joe, I think you answered the question first, and your answer was, hey, don't be afraid to go into somebody's good spot. Basically Joe's saying, don't be afraid to go into a guy's wheelhouse. You're going to get submitted, but don't just stand there all static. You're going to get swept. Go into his best game. You're going to have some issues at the start, but you're going to learn so much. Don't just stay static, trying not to get swept. Try to pass. You're going to get swept. Try to, as you're passing, you're going to get caught in a triangle or something. It's going to happen, but you're going to learn so much from it. And I remember when Joe, posted that answer, I thought that was great. And when you were just talking about that now, Joe, it just kind of brought me back to it.
Yep. So, we don't have the answers for everything, but go ahead and hit us up if you have any questions. We like to interact with our listeners.
And send those, either hit us up on Facebook at BjjBrick or send us an email at BjjBrick@gmail.com.
Yep. For you blue belts out there and higher, I have an audiobook. It's a little over an hour long. It's called 6 BJJ Training Games. And these are things that I have done myself while I'm actually rolling with somebody. And I changed the parameters a little bit. Like, just, we all do this naturally to a degree. If Gary's working on a sweep today, he's more focused on sweeping me than Kimori-ing me. If he's been, if I've got Joe working on the triangle choke, he's more focused. He'll be pulling guard. He'll be working towards that. He won't be trying to pass my guard. He will if he has to. He's in that situation. But he's got sort of a goal. So the 6 games for BJJ, it's really geared towards kind of intermediate to advanced players that maybe like, what do I do next? What should I work on? I've got a decent game, but if you feel like you're stalled out a little bit or you need some a little bit of a push in one direction, these games will limit what you do. And limiting what you do pushes you slightly into new directions. So it won't change your game drastically, but it'll say, hey, while I was playing this particular game, I had a different goal in mind, and I discovered that actually I'm pretty good about this. So let's work on that later on. So while you roll, you grab somebody. They don't even need to know you're working on anything in particular, but you'll notice different changes with how your game performs under different rules, basically. And it's fun. I always enjoyed playing different games or having different goals on the mat, and it for me, it helps me grow my own jiu-jitsu quite a bit. So check it out. It's $5.99. There'll be a link in the show notes. It's a little over an hour long. It's a lot like a podcast, except for it's just me describing these games and where they're going to take you. Check it out, my friends.
It's a lot like a podcast, but better.
Well, it would be better if it wasn't all just Byron. If Joe and I were in there.
That's true. That would be better. If you each come up with 3 games, I'll do 3 new ones, and we'll do the 9 games for BJJ. We'll build the brick wall 3 high, 9 high. Why not make it 9?
Yep. I still like kickball, but you won't let me use that one.
That's a terrible game.
Yeah, definitely a terrible game. You don't want to play that one. But basically one thing we like to talk about is as a off the mat lesson or on the mat lesson. We want to bring it back to. Off the mat lesson, we want to bring it back to jiu-jitsu. And one thing that just happened here recently, my daughter just turned 14. And here in Kansas, when you're 14, you can get a learner's permit to drive. Kansas is probably one of the earlier states to start driving. And as usual, my daughter wants to start driving. So, we get her, we sign her up for driver's ed. She takes that all summer long and gets a lot of practice in and, works with my wife, taking her out driving, gets her learner's permit, passes that. So, but I'm not sure of the exact rules, but I don't think she can drive on her own except to work or school till she turns maybe 15 or 16. I'm not totally sure how that works, but I guess I'll find out. But right now,
I'm sure she'll tell you the rules and you'll know them that way.
Well, I'm not going to bully you.
Trust your teenager to tell you the rule.
Yeah, well, I'm smart enough that I'll look it up. But so now that driver's ed's over and school has started, she hasn't been driving as much. But, if we just going down to get some gas or the grocery store, I'll be like, hey, you want to drive, and give her a little bit of practice. So today, my wife and her come back in the house, and I don't know where they've been, but, I asked my daughter if she wants to do something, and she gives me a little bit of attitude, which is a typical teenage daughter. And so I asked my wife, I was like, oh boy, what happened to her? And I guess my daughter was practicing driving with my wife there and almost got in an accident. She hasn't been driving very long. And, it kind of even goes back to the quote we're talking about. So now, because she got in an accident, she thinks she's a terrible driver, thinks, hey, I'm not cut out for this. That fear creeps into her head. And, the very first thing I want to do is, let's get back on that horse. Let's get out there. Let's practice. We're only going to get better by the more practicing we have. Hey, you almost got in an accident. That's never fun to do, but let's use as a learning experience. What did we do wrong? Did we not look both ways? Did we not come to a complete stop? Did we not look as we were changing lanes? Let's ask those questions. And then let's figure out how can we not do that again? Like, what do we need to work on? But the biggest thing is we can't let that fear get a hold of us. We can't just all of a sudden say, hey, I'm a terrible driver. I'm not going to drive for, till I'm 16, till all my friends, the peer pressure kicks in and they're all driving to school. What we need to do is, sit down, let's talk about it, and let's get a game plan, and let's practice even more. And I think that's the same thing with jiu-jitsu. If I'm training with Joe and Joe's better than me and he's tapping me out left and right and sweeping me left and right when he's working on stuff and there's nothing I can do to stop it, I can just throw my hands up in the air and just say, hey, feel terrible. Joe's murdering me. Joe's so good. I'm never going to be good at this. And, not my ego, but my psyche gets into it that I'm just, my mind's starting to play tricks on me, telling me I'm terrible. And next thing I know, I just hang up jiu-jitsu. I need to go back. Hey, what do I need to work on? What little things am I missing? Maybe talk to Joe because he's sweeping me so much. Hey, Joe, what am I missing here? How are you sweeping me? And, not only am I going to learn maybe how to get my balance better or my base better, but I'm also going to learn the ins and outs of Joe's sweep. So I'm going to learn offense and defense on there. But, I just think sometimes we make a mistake in life. Let's say we get in a car accident or on the mat, we go to a tournament, we get choked out within the first 5 seconds, and we get so down on ourselves that we just give up. It's a learning process. What did we do wrong? Who knows? Maybe we didn't do anything wrong. Maybe the guy's just so good. But, hey, what can we do to make ourselves better? And let's get a game plan and set some short-term and long-term goals.
Way to come through, Gary. I like that. I'm surprised you guys drive so early in Kansas. So that's
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't know you could drive at 14 till my daughter turned 14. I'm not from
she
Kansas.
Told you that she could.
yeah.
Well, she got a license, so something's working out.
She says, see the certificate I printed off the internet?
Joe's working on becoming an ordained minister online as well.
But what's funny about that is her driver's ed class over the summer. They only have driver's ed over the summer, I guess. And so what they would do is when they started driving, they would actually come down to about where I work. And I would always see the Goddard School District cars driving by, and I'd be like, ask my daughter, I was like, man, you guys driving by where I work at? She's like, yeah, we come back there and we find some cars and we practice parallel parking and this and that. So as soon as I found out that these 14-year-olds were driving around where I work, I told anybody who's parking on the side of the road to get in the parking lot because you may get hit.
Oh, that's funny. I thought you would say as soon as she kind of had that miss that was a little scary, that you make sure she's wearing her seatbelt and being safe, and get better insurance and smaller deductible.
Yeah, but I mean, those are things you have to talk about too. Hey, did you have your seatbelt on? Your seatbelt's so important. If you didn't, we have major problems. We have to stay safe. And, I started looking back at it to myself. I've been in 2 accidents in my life, and both of them were before I was 21. And, we get better as we do stuff more often. We get better. We're all better at jiu-jitsu than we were our first day. Byron's better at riding his unicycle now than the day he bought it. It's just, it's practice. And, we are going to have some issues, but, I'm just, my goal is I just don't want her to give up because something bad happened. And, was it really bad? Nobody got in an accident. Nobody got hit. And, sometimes, I'm glad nobody got hit, but let's use it as a learning experience and let's get better. And, let's keep driving. Let's jump right back on that horse.
Yeah, about that, Gary. Thinking, you get better with age and experience with driving. Joe and I have been meeting and have a conversation with you about your driving and your age. It's about that time. You're going to lose a little independence, but the same, Amazon Prime these days, you get stuff shipped to your house, and we'll give you a ride to the store every now and then.
Yeah, but you want to know how bad it is. Like I told you guys, the story about me being a little late here for this show to start. I found out what happened to my daughter. Had a little talk, and I just finished up jiu-jitsu, and I was going to go grab something to eat real quick. So as I was going to hit a drive-through and give me a sub. I drove past the place. I was thinking about what happened to my daughter, which is terrible. I need to be concentrated on the road. I wasn't doing, I was too worried about her, and, my mind wasn't there. And I drove past, and it wasn't about a mile till after I drove past it that I realized that, oh, man, I messed up. I need to turn around. So even I did it, and maybe you guys are right. Maybe it is time to take my license away. Well, the good thing is self-driving cars are coming. Maybe I can just have a self-driving car or call Uber.
There you go. Gary, we're not going to take your license away, and we also don't plan on taking anybody's blue belts away. I've never heard of that really happening.
Man, Byron, you are a black belt in segways. Great job.
Don't take that away either. Let's get to the heart of the episode here, talking about blue belts and some of the things that you go through in that stage of your journey. And if this is something that you think your teammates would enjoy, share that with the appropriate people. This might be an episode that a few people will get a lot of use out of. First off, with the blue belts, you got to say congratulations. That's a big deal. You're now pretty good at jiu-jitsu, and really compared to everybody else that doesn't train, you're amazing at jiu-jitsu. There's a big difference between a blue belt and somebody who knows what jiu-jitsu is, or a blue belt and the average guy on the street. Phenomenal at jiu-jitsu compared to them. The thing that's weird about it compared to everybody else at the jiu-jitsu school, like you're a blue belt, and there's belts that are higher and belts that are lower. You feel like you're kind of in the middle, or maybe depends on where your classes stack up. But you're really pretty good at jiu-jitsu at the blue belt stage. So congratulations, and it's important to recognize your hard work that's been put in before this.
Yeah, and not only being pretty good at jiu-jitsu at that time, you stuck it out. Jiu-jitsu is not a sport where you're going to get a blue belt in, 6 weeks. You show up, you train 2 times a week for 1 hour, and you got a blue belt after 6 weeks. Belts in jiu-jitsu are a long journey. And, staying from white belt to blue belt, that's a heck of an accomplishment. So many people drop out. And as we've talked about before, that's one of our goals of this podcast, is to keep people on that journey, keep people from dropping out. And, big pat on your back just for staying in the journey from white belt to blue belt. That's a heck of an accomplishment.
Yeah. Joe's also been one that has been known to stick it out occasionally. Joe,
he's been arrested for that a couple times.
Oh my goodness, you guys.
Hey Joe, at least this time it wasn't me who took us down the wrong path. It was Byron.
Yep, more of that 12-year-old humor.
No, I'm just saying you got to stick to it, and that's one of the main things at the white belt. It's frustrating to be that white belt or feel like you're close to being that blue belt and not get that recognition. Stick it out. That's what Gary says. That's what Joe often does.
Yeah.
I killed any momentum we had.
Yeah. Once you do get that blue belt, I just remember Byron and I got our blue belts the same day. And I know Byron and I both kind of talked about this, and I hear this from a lot of people is like, I didn't feel I was ready for it. I didn't feel like I was deserving of it. And I hear that from tons of people. I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm deserving of it. I don't think I'm good enough. But I'm telling you, you need to listen to your instructor. Your instructor is going to tell you when you're good enough, and definitely don't be asking your instructor, hey, I think I should be a blue belt now, or not asking, but telling. But if your instructor, if your professor, gives you that belt, he thinks you're ready, and that's what counts. If what your professor and instructor thinks.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean that he thinks you can beat every other white belt in the gym, that you're absolutely the most skilled white belt, and that's why you get your blue belt. There's more that goes into it than that. What kind of student are you? What kind of influence do you have at the gym? How hard do you work? Everybody's different athletically. So if you get your blue belt and there's still white belts that are tapping you out, it's par for the course, and everybody's journey is a little bit different. And like Gary and Byron said, trust your coach and just keep working.
That's a great point, Joe. I remember when I got my blue belt, I felt like I had a big target on my back. I felt like all the white belts wanted to beat me. And I think I I started doing stuff a little bit wrong at that point. I think I was more worried about winning and not losing to a white belt than I was about learning. So I think that's a really good point that you're saying right there. It's like you're still not expected to beat every white belt. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's blue belts who beat black belts. There's purple belts who beat black belts. There's brown belts who beat black belts. And it happens. I mean, the cool thing about jiu-jitsu is you make a mistake and somebody capitalizes on it, it's over. That's what I really like about the sport. But, don't put so much stock into winning or losing. We talk about that all the time. And there's still going to be white belts who are going to beat you. And, just take it and learn from it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the one of the main things for what's been referred to as the Blue Belt Blues. And as we make another Blues Brothers reference, but so if you're new to this or haven't heard of this term before, Blue Belt Blues, oftentimes you give, let's just say 10 people get their blue belts. They've been training for 1.5, 2 years, maybe 3 years, pretty solid. Now you're a blue belt. It seems like some of them who have been super consistent drop off and stop training, and it's frustrating as a teammate to see your friend just like disappear. It's frustrating as a coach to hand somebody an accomplishment and not see them on the mat anymore. It's a bit of a mystery of why people do that. I think they feel like the next step is so far away sometimes, and that it's not worth it to keep going. I think that they feel like they've hit a milestone, and anytime you get a milestone, it's a time to evaluate whether you want to keep going or not, maybe. But it may sound a bit odd, or you've heard it before. Then it wouldn't sound odd. It may sound a bit like a cliche, but don't train for the belts. You should be training to get better at jiu-jitsu, to enjoy the journey, to experience this with your teammates and your competitors. Like there's the belt really means so little as far as it should mean so little as far as your enjoyment out of it. You'll feel like a blue belt. Like you'll notice it. You're tied on. A week or two goes by, a month or 2 months, and it's normal. And getting past that first couple of months of it feeling kind of unusual, being nervous about it, that's all you got to do, and then it's normal again. Have you guys seen many people just kind of get that blue belt blues and just kind of use it as a point to drop off?
Yeah, I think you had a good point. I don't know if it actually falls under the umbrella of blue belt blues, but the issue of it feeling like you reached a milestone. I think in jiu-jitsu, after you go a while, you realize how significant a blue belt is. It's almost like a black belt in some other martial arts. I mean, there are some martial arts that you get a black belt in 2 or 3 years. And so if that's a comparison you're using, blue belt's pretty significant achievement. But if you've made it up to be that in your mind, I think that's going to contribute to some people quitting. So, yeah, just look at it as another step. The earlier you can adopt the idea that this is a lifetime activity that I'm gonna do for the rest of my life, the earlier you can kind of adopt that, I think the more enjoyment you're going to get out of jiu-jitsu.
Joe, I agree with that last point you made. And that's one thing that really helped me. When I first started, I had no clue I was going to train for, I'm going on, what have we been training, Byron, 16 years or something like that. I didn't know if it was going to last a year, 2 years or 6 months. And, I got that blue belt. And like I said, when I first got it, I was totally into not letting a white belt tap me. I just thought that was, disrespectful or not disrespectful. Like I would be disrespectful to my instructor. Like my instructor would think less of me if I got tapped by a blue belt. That's kind of what I thought, or tapped by a white belt when I was a blue belt. And so, I put undue pressure on myself, and I didn't realize I had the blue belt blues. I can't even say the word, but blue belt blues.
Brother.
But I really did. Yeah. I was putting so much pressure on myself. I wasn't having as much fun. And really until, I was just like Joe said that, hey, this is going to become a lifetime thing for me. I'm going to have fun doing it. I'm not going to worry as much about the belt as I am having fun and learning. And what I try to do now is just learn something new all the time. And if I learn something new all the time, it's just going to keep me engaged in the sport. It's going to be fun because I've always got another puzzle to figure out, and take the pressure off of competing against others. And now I change my mindset to I'm learning from others, and that's definitely helped me.
Yeah, Gary, you're talking about feeling like you had to defend the belt or whatever. And I don't know that I felt that quite so much because, well, I didn't deserve my blue belt when I got it anyway. But I did feel some pressure, and I guess I felt for a while like I wasn't getting any better, and that was really frustrating to me. Like, I worked really hard right before I got my blue belt, just trying to get better, and I felt like I was made progress, and then I felt like I stalled out. And I remember seriously wondering if maybe because of my age and some other things, if it was possible that some people just can never develop skill beyond that blue belt level, and started to think that I might be that guy. And I came to a point where I decided that was okay. If I never got any better than this, if I never got a purple belt, I would be okay with that. And I was still going to do jiu-jitsu for as long as my body would let me. And when I came to that conclusion, I started getting better at jiu-jitsu.
Joe, it's crazy that you said that you thought you could only get to a certain level and you were attributing it to age and, stuff of that sort. And I did the exact same thing. I remember one time being taught a triangle, and for some reason, I just remember telling myself, and I was probably at white belt level, and I remember saying, oh, because of my age, I'm never going to be able to do a triangle. I don't know why that came into my head, but I've had so many times early in my career that I thought because of my age I would not be able to do stuff. I would never get any better. I would never make it to the black belt level. I'm not there, but I know I'll get there someday. But the great thing is like you said, Joe, is like I just, how do I say it? I just have fun. I just explore stuff, and I've realized that if I put negative thoughts like that into my mind, that I can't do something because of my age, I'm not going to be able to do it. Once I start telling myself, it's always just going to be an excuse. I'll find excuse after excuse. I can't do a triangle because of my age. And it's funny because a triangle actually became one of my better moves not much longer after that. And, once I start negative thoughts kind of going back to our quote, it starts creeping in, my happiness and my learning decrease. And I just, try to keep positive thoughts in my head, hang out with positive people, and have fun and keep a smile on my face.
And that's great advice, guys. I do feel like sometimes as blue belts, you get the belt and you think you're going to do better. Like, yeah, and I'm a blue belt. This stuff's going to start getting easier. And sometimes really what happens is you actually perform against the same people a little bit worse. And what's happening here, it makes sense if you think about it. You have a white belt. Let's just use a stripe system. 3 stripes and one white belt that's 4 stripes. They go roll, and they usually the 4 stripe gets a better situation, whatever. And eventually the 4 stripes person gets that blue belt, and the other one gets another stripe. Well, now this 4 stripe white belt is rolling with a blue belt. Before they were more kind of on the more equal playing field, and now they're trying to tab out a blue belt. So there's a lot of times with those white belts that are getting close, there's a lot more intensity than with just another white belt, regardless of stripes. And I think that, man, these people are coming after me. You kind of feel like you have the target on your back. Same thing from upper belts. I roll harder with blue belts than I do with white belts. I roll harder with purple belts than I do with blue belts. That's just how it is. I don't always do that, but generally speaking, if you're a white belt, you're going to have a pretty enjoyable roll. You're not going to see like a real good smashing or anything too crazy out of me. You're just going to see you're going to see techniques you're familiar with already. Maybe it's stuff we've done today. If you're a blue belt, you're going to see more of my game come out. And if you're a purple belt, you're probably getting a lot of the better parts of my game thrown at you. And you might feel as you get kind of ramped up in ability, you might feel like, man, I'm doing worse. And that's just people having to adjust what they're doing with you. And it could be frustrating. I can understand that, but it's in the long run, it's better for you.
Man, we just had a guy get promoted last week, white to blue belt, young guy, athletic guy, aggressive guy. And Friday night, first night I saw him rolling as a blue belt. And, man, he rolled with all the other white belts, a couple blue belts, and every roll it was like a honey badger and a wounded cougar. I mean, fur flying and these guys all over the place. It's exactly what you said, Byron. This guy wanted to prove his blue belt, but all of the other white belts, they're like, yeah, I think I can hang with this guy, And, boy, they were some death matches, I'll tell you.
And ultimately, you've got to let those go. That little phase for him or for anybody is going to pass. And you're going to tie the belt around your waist. Nobody will pay attention, and you'll go and you'll train. And usually that happens in a couple of weeks. It's not that big a deal. You'll feel it a little bit more if you're visiting another gym. And, man, I wish I had that white belt to put on. But now I got to wrap this blue belt around my waist and see all these white belts I've been training for a little while, see if they could get me. And it's a little bit more that feeling creeping, like, man, I've got this belt, and it feels like a little bit of a burden. Let it go. It's not a burden. When you leave, people won't talk about how great or how poorly you did. They'll remember how friendly you were. How'd you make them feel? Did you help their game at all? That sort of thing is what people typically remember. If you're traveling, this is a whole different topic, a different episode. But go to have a good time. Go to meet some people. Don't go to prove yourself or prove your gym as like the best thing that there is around there.
So, Byron, I guess you'd say that blue belt's probably a good time to start specializing a little bit and developing your game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you get especially that, and that's part of that getting past that winning and losing, improving your belt. It's hard to be developing your game when you're worried about getting submitted by a white belt. So you get past that, and you start to specialize a little bit more as a blue belt. What kind of things were you working on when you were a blue belt?
I was a guard guy, 100%. I would, as being one of the smaller people on the mats, I really didn't have that choice, and I quickly became, probably as late white belt, pretty comfortable playing my guard. And I like doing arm bars and triangle chokes quite a bit as a white and a blue belt. What I was not comfortable doing is play at a top game. I wasn't comfortable passing somebody's guard, and I wasn't comfortable trying to hold them down and control somebody. I didn't have those skills yet. I just was still forced into play a particular game. It was guard. I found fun in that process of playing guard, and I think it would have been more frustrating if I was wanting to play top all the time and I never could. I think if that was the case, I should have been working on my sweeps versus working on submissions from my back. And, if you get better at your sweeps, you'll get more time on the top and you'll get to work on those things. I just played guard, and I was perfectly fine with that. How about you, Gary?
Well, I was going to say, Byron, I remember defending your arm bars all the time and getting caught in your arm bar from the guard. It was great. And, even just thinking back to those days, it's funny because you were such a guard player back then. And now you got some of the most dominating top pressure I've ever seen today. Like, you don't pull guard, you get right on top and you just smash and take the will right out of people. So it's kind of funny just to, I forgot you were a guard guy, and I do remember back to those days. That's what you were. But you roll with you today. I'm saying 100% you're a top smashing guy. So to be honest, I liked your guard game better. I could breathe more. But me, I wasn't a bottom guy at all. I was a top guy, and I had one move, a Kimura, and that's all I used. I had a Kimura from north-south, and I would get top position. I would fight for that underhook, and I just, that one move. I mean, a lot of people would say, you need more moves and this and that, but I've kind of made a living with Kimuras. It's a move I liked, and I was with you, or I was like you, but the opposite. Even though I think my top game was atrocious, I was a one-hit wonder. I didn't really know anything about pressure or really how to block the hips or frame and cage the hips. I wasn't very good at that. But that's what it is. It's a learning process. We're going to get better each and every day. From day one as a blue belt to our last day as a blue belt, we're learning stuff. But I was a top guy, and my guard was not very good. I would get passed left and right. But hey, it just gave me more stuff to work on. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, I like the Kimura too, but I did it from guard. I played a lot of closed guard when I was a blue belt, and I liked the Kimura, and I liked the hip bump sweep, and they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And as far as other guys developing their game, I think a blue belt is a good time where you start to you develop it more as a system, and you're looking for things that work. And if you like the Kimura from full guard, then when you're developing your side control, you might want to think about doing a Kimura from there. Or if you like the armbar from guard, when you start developing your mount game, you might want to think about doing an armbar from the mount as well. So, I like the Kimura, I like the hip bump sweep, and that's kind of where I was at.
One thing I remember, when I became a blue belt and I really started developing my game and working on, what worked best for me and figuring it out. But I just remember how happy I was when, white belts would ask me about my Kimura, how I'm doing it or this and that. It was kind of neat because I had never taught anybody before. And, I don't even know if I really even knew how to teach at that point. I was, I'd show it to people, and as you show it to people and try to explain it to people, you do get better because you have to think about it. But I just remember the pride of people asking me how I did a specific move, and something that I hadn't really had before. People just came up to me and, hey, good to meet you. Thanks for the role and this and that. And, I still loved all that stuff, but I just remember how happy I was the first time somebody asked me, how to do, my favorite move. I just thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, that's kind of a natural thing. You'll be put in that position, and you should, as a teammate, help your teammates, and you should be looking to help white belts as a blue belt. That's a great thing to do. And it may be a little bit weird for, if somebody felt like they were going to get a blue belt and you got it instead, and now you're suddenly, hey, this is how you do it. Okay, probably not that person. But anybody who's new that's walking in sees the belt difference, and they know, okay, this person's blue belt. Maybe they can help me with this. And that's a great role to play. I know people who have been blue belts quite a bit longer than they technically needed to be because they've had such a hard time being a teammate and helping other people. Giving somebody a purple belt's a pretty big deal. And if you're kind of a jerk, or you're not in it for others as well as yourself, if you're just out there smashing everybody that you come up with, if I see a blue belt just totally annihilating white belts, I don't think they're anywhere near purple belt time. Like, you need to be able to be playful with those new people and let them work a little bit, have that confidence. Because a new blue belt, yeah, they're going to go hard against those white belts because they don't get caught. But a confident blue belt that's able to play a little bit and help them and tell, okay, if you did this, it would have been better, or keep working on that. That's what you want to see as a coach. You want to see those blue belts helping other people. And most of the time you're going to be helping white belts or other blue belts. But there's probably time to help anybody.
Yeah, Byron, I like that you kind of touched on there that you can be helping them not just by offering instruction or advice, but by the way that you roll with them. One method I like to use to help people out is I'll ask them before we roll what they've been working on. And if they've got something they're working on, I'll just try and steer their roll in that direction. If they say they've been working on spider guard and they pull guard, I'll let them get grips on my sleeves and get a foot on my bicep or something, and then I'll start defending. And I'm not big into doing instructing, but I like to help people out that way.
Byron, I like the point you were talking about, that if somebody's being a jerk and not passing along information to their teammates, that's never good news. One way I always look at it, that as you're helping your teammates get better, helping them with techniques, teaching them stuff as you've gaining that knowledge, it only makes the whole room better, which in turn is going to make yourself better. If I have a training partner that, let's just say there's two training partners, me and let's say Byron, and I'm 50 times better than Byron, but all I do is beat Byron up all the time, I'm not getting any better. But if I take my time and I show Byron my stuff, and I pick Byron's brain and learn from him, and we both exchange positions and put ourselves in some terrible positions to especially me, if I'm better than him, put myself in terrible positions to learn and learn more. We're just the sky's the limit for both of us. We have to help each other out. We have to share knowledge. We have to be good people to each other and the rest of our teammates if we want to get better. That's going to make me exponentially better by being that kind of person.
As we've gone through this, we've told a few stories and examples from our own lives. I remember the day we got our blue belts, Gary. It was Eric Williams, who has not been on the show. And if you train at Elite MMA, or maybe it's Elite Martial Arts, I think it's Elite MMA in Houston, and know Eric Williams, I'd love to get a hold of him. I've sent his Facebook thing a couple messages in the past, never got any luck getting a response, but man, that would be great. He was a really fun guy to learn from when he came up through here and kind of, I guess, tested us as blue belts. But one thing that happened is he had us do different positions and ask us different things and show things and then spar. But he told me, he's like, you have some serious holes in your guard. You have some serious problems with your armbar, which I thought was my best move. He said, he said, you almost don't have any half guard at all. I'm like, man, I guess I'm not getting a blue belt today. But he ended up giving me a blue anyway. He saw things that I was doing right. I like my armbar. That was I thought my best move. I wasn't bringing my hips up. I wasn't controlling posture. I was just throwing my leg over and hipping into it as hard as I could. And yeah, that's a pretty sloppy armbar. He was able to help me out and identify that as a problem. But I do remember kind of feeling, man, this is he's getting pretty real with me on my game, and I've got some problems. And before we got our belts, he had us roll. He paired us up, and Gary and I got paired up together, and we went at it like crazy. So you get used to rolling with each other. You kind of understand what the other person's going to bring, and we're taking a blue belt test. He's like, well, pair up, you guys. Eric didn't know us that well. He's just coming through town. He wanted to see what it looked like when we were rolling, and Gary and I were similar size and skill. Paired us up, and we tried to kill each other.
I remember right before we started, you whispered to me, it's like, hey, Gary, don't go easy. Let's go.
I don't remember that, but I totally believe that because I remember going super hard, and it was I remember because everybody else before us, nobody submitted anybody. I was like, I'm submitting Gary no matter what, and it didn't happen. It was just two teammates going at it hard, and somebody else evaluating us. But it was interesting. A little part of the test. I think everybody's tests are a little bit different, and that one we probably did that because he didn't really know us as well as most coaches do these days. And we had a guy try a black belt in town, which was amazing, and he was going to do our tests, and we trained under a purple belt, and so this was a great opportunity. And that's he didn't know us, so why not watch us roll?
But I think one thing that was unique to us getting our blue belt, which we'd been training over a year. Consistently, no time off. But we had two other guys getting their blue belts at the same time who had been training for a long time. This was back when there were no black belts around or anything of that sort. So one thing that I think why Byron and I really didn't feel up to it, we had two other guys that were getting their blue belts at the same time that were just really, really good. They were heading tails above us, which kind of made us feel a little bit more inferior. And
not head and shoulders, but head and tails above us.
Head and tails above
Nailed
us.
Nailed it.
But I just remember that. One of the things I was thinking about, man, how can I get my blue belt if Bronk and Weimer, Ricky are getting theirs at the same time as me? I'm nowhere near their level.
Yeah, Joe, could you remember any of your blue belt testing or any of the feelings you had?
Well, with my blue and purple belt, I didn't have a test. The schools I've gone to, they none of them do that, so it's a little bit different. But when I got my blue belt, you guys know I trained in Brazil for a year and a half while I was working down there. And so I trained down there for a year and a half. I come back up to Texas, and the only school in town was a brand new MMA school just opening up. And so I was training there, and we're kind of steering the school more towards Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And so we got in contact with the guy that I trained with when I was in Brazil. His name's Luis Paulo. He's got a pretty strong organization down there. And he came up and did a seminar at our school and spent a week with us. And he gave me my blue belt at that time. And it was a pretty big deal. I was honored to have him up and appreciate his instruction. And so the guy that was running the school got his blue belt on the same day, and one other guy that trains with us. We're all still training, but so we were the only blue belts in the school then. So kind of unique, but it was awesome.
Yeah, and everybody has different ways that they do the belt systems, and that's great. The non-testy way is the more common way that I see here in Wichita at the gym I train at. Just, hey, you're there. Here's your blue belt. I think earlier on when you have somebody testing you who doesn't see and train with you on a regular basis, they have to have some sort of a method of doing that. And, show me some moves, show me what you do. Let's see two of your favorite guard moves, or that sort of thing comes into play more often with that. But it doesn't really matter. It's not up to you. It's up to your coach how you get tested, or if you don't get tested at all, and if you get awarded a belt. And I guess in the long run, it doesn't really matter. What does matter is, we talked about earlier, is to have the feeling like you deserve it, and not have the feeling like you deserve it before you do. Like if you're that white belt, and you're like, man, I should have this by now, and drop that feeling. That's not going to help anybody. But once you get it, most people get the feeling like, man, I don't really feel like I'm a blue belt yet. And you get that self-doubt and stuff. And like Joe was saying earlier, trust your coach. They know what they're doing. You're going to have days you roll like a white belt. That's life. I'm going to have a day when I drive like I'm a teenage kid instead of a guy who's driven for 20 years.
You're making fun of my daughter's driving?
No, sir, Carrie. No, sir. But you're gonna have days like that when you just don't perform like you should, and you just need to let those go and trust your coach. Like, yeah, you're a blue belt. So after you get your blue belt, you could think about that purple belt, but really just hunker down and be a blue belt and enjoy that. And you might look back and think, man, it was nice to be a white belt. I didn't have people asking me questions about how to do this and that. Like, some of these questions are really hard. And I have to tell people, I don't know how to do that. There are some advantages to having a lower belt. So try to find the enjoyment at being a blue belt, and don't necessarily work on racing towards the next thing. I guess, obviously, if you're new to jiu-jitsu, it goes white for adults, white, blue, purple, brown, and black. And the purple belt's technically next. Maybe your gym does stripes, maybe they don't. But I think it's pretty foolish to start thinking about the purple belt as being next right away. I never did think about the next belt until I got a brown belt. I'm like, oh crap! Like, the next belt's a black belt. But even then, I wasn't in a hurry to get the next belt. It was just more of maybe an unnecessary stress. I thought, man, I better enjoy this, not being the black belt thing. Enjoy kind of being able to still have some major holes in my game as a brown belt. No secret, still have some major holes in my game as a black belt. I've just gotten better at things I'm good at, maybe.
Yeah, that's the key, Byron. We're always going to have holes in our game, no matter what belt we are, no matter how long we've been training. But in my opinion, what makes it so fun is that gives us stuff to work on. If we ever just became masters at this sport and could I don't think I would enjoy it and never had anything else to learn. I just love the endless learning possibilities, the endless, dimensions that we can take this sport to. I'm never going to have a full grasp of it. And that's what I love so much about it.
Yep, you're always going to have holes. You just need a good teammate to help you fill those holes.
Yeah, look, I know a lot of people. When in doubt, stick it out, Joe.
Well, talking about good teammates and quality training partners, and we've talked about that a lot as a blue belt. Like that's really part of your role, is to help those that are a newer belt level. A lot of times when we have a new person come in, I will tell them, grab a colored belt to roll. If you don't roll that, that's fine. Just sit there and watch us roll. But if you want to roll, avoid the white belts. And sometimes they're a little suspicious of this advice, and I'll say, a lot of these white belts have been training for quite a while, and jiu-jitsu still hasn't really started to work real well for them, and they're really trying to apply their craft, by which I mean try as hard as they can to smash somebody or choke somebody. And that's going to be you. But if you grab a blue belt or a purple belt or anything like that, they're confident in their technique, and they don't need to prove themselves to anybody. And so most of the time I say, grab a colored belt. They're going to treat you great, and let me know if they don't. And occasionally we have somebody, hey, grab anybody except for this particular person over here. And you'll have a good time today. And that's as we, for the first exposure, or first couple of times in the gym, I want people to have a great time. And if they get smashed too badly, maybe they tough it up. Maybe they stick it out like Gary always does. Maybe they don't. And you know what? Maybe in 15 years, that decision they made on some weekend, whether to come in and train or not, the scale was tipped, and they did train because it was fun also, or they didn't train because they were tired of getting smashed every weekend. Jiu-jitsu, it does make us more durable and more resilient, but sometimes you have to take somebody who's not all that resilient to begin with and make them that way. And if you smash them right at the get-go, they don't have that chance.
You're talking about teammates that are nice to you, that, kind of take you under your wing when you first start. And I remember when I first started, Jake, your instructor, Jake Fox, he's been on the show before, and he also hosted our BjjBrick Brickapalooza, the event there. But I remember him when he first started, and he was a white belt. He'd been training a little bit longer than me, though. But he was the one who was really nice to me at the start. He, a lot of people would just tap me out and, just go on from that. But Jake would always show me stuff, and I mean, even as a white belt, I was so bad he could show me a lot of stuff. But I just remember him and a guy named Jeff Day making me feel really welcome. That kept me coming, week after week after week. And those people, I'm indebted to, because like Byron said, it could be easy to quit if somebody just smashed me and I wasn't having any fun. But I just remember, I kind of looked up to Jake. He was better than me, and took some time instead of just beat me up, would show me stuff and go from there. I just thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and you don't remember how great everybody was. We probably do, but the important thing was how they made you feel and how they valued your experience on the mat. Remember that, guys, as blue belts, you become a little bit of a coach and a little bit of a representative for the gym. And, be nice to people. You're representing jiu-jitsu as a whole sometimes.
What's crazy, this whole time, we've talked about getting the blue belts, but we've also talked, like you said, Byron, about being a good teammate and helping your teammates out and stuff like that. And it goes beyond, blue belts. It's your team. And, Joe, you've got an article that you just wrote about Brotherhood in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. The Brotherhood extends beyond the mats. A couple of weeks ago, we were recording the podcast and just kind of talking, and I mentioned to you guys that had some home repairs being done by a teammate of mine. He's got a roofing company there, San Miguel Roofing, and just really impressed with the quality of work his guys did, and more so the way that his workers treated our home and us with respect, and it was a great experience. And Byron's like, well, you should write an article about it. And my first thought was kind of, what I'm going to do a free advertisement for the guy. I mean, how am I going to make a jiu-jitsu article out of this? But something that's always fascinated me about jiu-jitsu is how once you've been doing it a while, you can visit another gym, and 90% of the time, I go and I visit another gym, and maybe 2 hours you're there training. By the end of the match, or by the end of the class, I feel like I'm really good friends with these guys. I mean, there's just a natural connection. And the guys that I train with all the time, when we say brotherhood, and not to use that as in the gender way, but don't you guys really feel that it is a brotherhood?
Oh, yeah, definitely. As you said, the truth reveals itself on the mat. We all work so hard out there, and we respect each other for getting out there. But, man, that brotherhood is something. And I just want to tell a little quick story of, I'm there for my teammates are there for me. But crazy thing is, one night, and it's probably 8 o'clock, and it's basically about ready to get dark out. And I noticed one of my sprinkler heads on my sprinkler wasn't working. And I have never fixed my sprinkler. I've never had any issues with it. And I've never played around with it myself to fix it if I had any issues. So I just remember, I remember one of my buddies that I trained with told me he, put his own sprinkler system in. So I sent him a text. I was like, hey, how familiar are you with changing a sprinkler head? And he replies back, pretty familiar. Hey, what's going on? And I put my phone down. I didn't reply anything back right away. And this guy lives probably, 3 or 4 miles from my house. Within 5 minutes of sending that first text, my doorbell rings. And remember, it's just about dark out. So I'm sitting there thinking, probably, maybe one of my kids' friends are coming over or something. And it's like, definitely nobody come to see me. I open my door, and there's the guy I text, my training partner. Has his truck over here, has all his tools, has about 500 different sprinkler heads, and he's like, hey, what do you need me to fix? That, yeah, and, I just could not believe it. And I'll tell one other quick story about brotherhood is when I moved into this house, I, needed help moving. And I'm never the guy who's going to ask for help. I do not do that. And I tell you, I had to turn away people to help me move. And it's just because, brotherhood. People, they're going to give away some of their time to help me do a crappy task. Nobody wants to help somebody move. But you do that because of the brotherhood, because of your teammates. And, man, I couldn't ask for better friends and that I've met on the mats.
Yeah, looking at your article, Joe, check it out on the website, BjjBrick.com. Great website. But it's great with jiu-jitsu. You have like doctors training with people who are, high school kids, and you have people who are looking for jobs training with people who are employing people. I mean, you get like a huge mix of people in the mess because they all have a common interest, but the rest of their lives could be totally different or very similar. And it's a great mix. And you hear about like diversity and things like that. Jiu-jitsu, there's one common thread. It's grappling, and other than that, it's a pretty diverse group. You'll have grandparents along with people who aren't anywhere near having children yet, or or somebody else's grandkids. It's amazing with the diversity, and it makes it so much more enjoyable that we're all the same.
Joe, in your article, you're talking about why the relationships are on so deep and the level of trust, and you have two main reasons for that. Can you elaborate on those?
Yeah, one of them you already touched on, and that's that the truth is always revealed on the mats. I think in any relationship, when you've got to be really, really honest with somebody, even if it's just about one particular thing, that's going to lead to more honesty in the relationship. And unlike other hobbies or interests or workplace scenarios where you can sort of BS your way through things, you can't do that in jiu-jitsu. I mean, you can go to a class or two and talk about how good you are, but my hip hurts this day or my elbow hurts this day. But eventually, like you say, the truth is revealed. And so I think that's part of it. And the other reason is we don't often think about this, but if you're arm barring me, Gary, I'm going to do my best to defend it. And I'm pretty much not going to tap until all of my defensive resources have been exhausted. In other words, the only thing that's keeping you from breaking my arm at that point is that I tap and you respect it. And when you have that level of trust between people, that goes a long ways towards building good relationships as well.
Man, well said, Joe. And I appreciate the article. It does highlight your friend's business, and there'll be links to the business. If you're what area is your friend operate in?
Yeah, we're in Brazoria County, which is just south of Houston. So anywhere between Houston and Freeport, Texas. And I would just close by saying this as well. If you need some work done, or you're doing business where you live, if you've got somebody in your gym that owns a small business or manages a small business, consider giving them the business before you take it elsewhere.
I'll be giving Gary the business later on.
Yeah, but definitely check out San Miguel Roofing or on Facebook, San Miguel Roofing. Go in there and give them a like. And it's just great when you have great teammates like that. And and Joe had been their home had been recovering from the hurricane, and it's been over a year going through stuff. And towards the end of his long journey to get his home back, has a great guy like Javier and his company San Miguel Roofing. He put his trust into that, and he gets great service and workmanship, and what a great story.
Hey, I want to bring back Jeremy to the podcast here, deliver a message about a seminar we have coming up in Wichita, Kansas for the We Defy Foundation. Jeremy, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. Glad to be back on the show talking about the We Defy Foundation seminar.
Absolutely. Good to have you back. So if I don't think I mentioned it in the last episode, but we train together. So it's good to share the mat with you, and then it's always interesting to bring people that are on the mats every see weekly or multiple times a week, get them on the show, and I don't know, that's kind of a fun thing that we don't do a whole lot here, but I feel like I should, but it's great to have you on the show, Jeremy. It's great to train with you. But what is going on and when?
So we have a We Defy Foundation seminar. This is an annual event that we do up at Fox Fitness. The details for this will be, the seminar will be on October 6th and 7th from 10 a.m. to noon. There's going to be an hour and a half open mat following each day. October 6th is a co-ed seminar. October 7th will be a women's only seminar. One thing I didn't mention last time I was on, there will be a $50 donation, but 100% of the donations will be going back to the We Defy Foundation so they can, fund more veterans so they can get back, so they can get to training on the mats. This year, we have Professor Gina Franson coming out to visit us. She'll be teaching both the co-ed and ladies only seminar. If you're a lady and you're listening and you're kind of contemplating like, oh, why should I come both days? Well, Professor Franson will be covering completely different material for the ladies only seminar. So, if you're kind of up in the air on it, know that, you're not going to get the same materials 2 days in a row. So again, October 6th, co-ed, October 7th, ladies only, at Fox Fitness, 10 a.m. to noon for the seminar. And then, like I said earlier, an hour and a half open mat to get some cross training in with whoever comes to support this event.
Didn't ask it last time. Assuming it's all, is it gi or no gi or what's up?
This is going to be, it'll be in the gi.
Cool.
There are a lot more techniques offered with the gi as opposed to not. So we're going to, keep it in the gi and, give everybody a lot of different perspectives on things that, they might not be familiar with.
That's cool. So, now you got to remember to bring your gi and all that stuff. So I don't want to forget that. But we man, it was awesome last year. He had a few listeners show up, and that was great. Hoping to see them again. But if you're anywhere near the Wichita, Kansas area, definitely worth the drive down here or up here, and get some mat time. And excited to meet Gina Franson. Had her on the show. Excited to see Brian again. He's also been on the show. So it's gonna be a great weekend. I'm excited for the co-ed seminar, and it looks like my wife is going to be able to make it to the women's only seminar. She's pumped about that. So this is gonna be a great weekend for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, the last year's turnout was really good. We're looking to build on that and, make this a bigger and bigger event each year. That way we can keep giving back to a veteran-centered organization. If you're not aware, We Defy provides therapeutic relief for disabled combat veterans through the means of jiu-jitsu. So it's definitely a beneficial program. And, it's something the gym owners really support and got behind when I presented it to them years ago now. They've really supported my decision on this, and every time we do a seminar, they're 100% behind it as well. So we're looking to keep growing this program every year.
Yeah. So mark your calendars, October 6th and 7th. The 6th will be the co-ed, 7th is women's only seminar, 10 in the morning until noon, and then save time afterwards for some open mat time, about an hour or so, hour and a half. Depends on when you get tired. So this is going to be a great event, Jeremy.
Yeah, I really hope so. Really looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing some new faces and some old faces as well.
Yep. Well, mine's the old face. But I look forward to seeing people that were here last year. And I'm sure some new faces will show up, and we'll be happy to share them out with them and to do a seminar. Man, this is going to be, I'm excited for this. And I'm pumped to meet Gina. So thanks for bringing Gina and Brian to Fox Fitness, the Wichita, Kansas area. So thank you so much, Jeremy, and we'll see you on the mats, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for doing this again. I really appreciate it. Every time we decide to do something, you've always let me come on to the show and talk about it. So I really appreciate it.
Yep, I like talking with you. And, we're talking jiu-jitsu, and it's good. I think you're a great example, and kind of a tangent here, but in your local community, you have to have people that kind of go the extra mile to help build the community a little bit more. And some people, it's perfectly fine. You might go to work, you might do family things, you might go train. That's fine. But Jeremy seems to consistently go above and beyond, and he steps up. And he's organizing events. He's organizing different things at the gym, and this isn't these events aren't the only way you've done that. But we really appreciate having you as part of the jiu-jitsu community here in Wichita. So you're a good example. So if you're at home, you might live in I don't know, some other city far away, but identify those people that are able to do those sort of things and support them when you can. I appreciate it, Jeremy.
Yeah, making me blush. Thank you.
We can't even tell on the podcast. That's the main thing. Hey, one more thing I wanted to mention at the blue belts. I looking at my notes here as we're continuing on with the show. I just wanted to say, and I tell this a lot to new blue belts. Let's just pretend you're a new blue belt.
Hi, I'm brand new, and I'm a blue belt.
Hi,
my name's Gary.
Jerry, the new guy, the new blue belt. Congratulations on getting your blue belt. And
thank you.
Just to let you know, you are a far better blue belt than I was when I got my blue belt. And I'm dead serious about that. Your game is more advanced. You have more tools. Your tools are better. And really what's happening with that is it may be their hard work and that sort of thing, but the training is getting better. Looking at my blue belt game, it was I had some things that I did well, and I had a lot of things I didn't do at all. And I just think that with jiu-jitsu growing, you have more people. Gary and I trained with a purple belt and a bunch of white belts when we got our blue belts. So just imagine that training environment. We did our best. We had fun. We're grateful for the jiu-jitsu that we had. But compare that to a blue belt who's training with several black belts, a lot of brown belts, and several purple belts, and a bunch of blue belts. Like, there's no comparison with that blue belt. So I really feel that all the people that I've seen get blue belts in the past several years would have annihilated me when I was a blue belt. So I tell people that because they'll get that day when they don't feel like they're actually blue belt. Well, they're better blue belt than I was, and I'm still here. So that's just one thing I looked at my notes and said, hey, I forgot to mention that. And I think that's, blue belts today are awesome at jiu-jitsu.
And the crazy thing is you're always making fun of Joe and I for getting stuff as we get a little bit older. And Byron, I think it's starting to happen to you. We might have to take away your driver's license.
That's fine. You can take it away. I'll just print off another one from that website that I found. Those you print off websites. But one thing you can't take away.
We'll put a link to that website on the show notes for you.
One thing that nobody's going to take away is your guys' new audiobook. It's going to be great. And it's been a long time in the making. You guys have often been called sprinklers on the mats. And, that sounds terrible saying that. But, I thought about this when Gary talked about a sprinkler problem. It has to do with you guys being super sweaty while you're training. And you've developed different techniques, different standing techniques, different techniques to get your opponent to slip on some sweat. A lot of stuff is going on with this sprinkler. The mat sprinklers is what I call you guys. So the audiobook, I got to bring this in a little bit better than what I did. It's a time of the podcast when we do a little improv here. And I'm going to watch Gary and Joe and maybe even Jerry try to make some idea of a book here before us. But sprinklers on the mats, gentlemen. How do you guys do it? You guys are coming in super hydrated. I know most of Gary's techniques, takedown wise, get somebody to slip, and then he just kind of shows up and he lands on him. And Joe, nearly impossible to triangle, just slips right out of it.
Yeah, well, first of all, you have to be really sweaty, and there's a number of ways you can do that. You can amplify the degree to which you sweat by you take a really hot Epsom salt bath before you go, and that heats your core temperature up a little bit. Eat some hot peppers, and because you want to be really sweaty for some of these techniques to work. Now, I play Top Game quite a bit these days, and one thing I've been working on is identifying the points on my face where the sweat drips from, and that way I can more accurately position myself above my opponent's face. And I like the sweat in the eyes and when I'm really going in for the kill, the sweat in the mouth. If I can position myself just right, and then sometimes you get where it's not just a drop, but where it actually drizzles off your eyebrow for a second.
That's one of my favorite moves. Joe has really taught me a lot about, stuff like that, the positioning, how to get the most out of my sweat. But the move that Joe really helped me out the most on is not just the dripping. Joe calls it the waterboard. Joe, talk a little bit about waterboarding your opponent.
Oh, yeah. It works best if you wear a cotton T-shirt, and then you get that thing just completely soaked through. And you can do it from a number of positions, but, north-south's always a favorite. And you just put the belly and the chest right on their face with that wet T-shirt. You're bound to get them to panic and make a mistake when you do that. Yeah. Then you capitalize on that.
Yeah, and, besides even just capitalize on that, a lot of times we get the guys to tell the truth. It's kind of like truth serum. So, that works, two ways in one, so sometimes we do get the real truth of, what's going on. But, you talked about the takedowns there, Byron. That's another thing we're doing is we, try to stay static. We try to stay with a good base, but we're opening our pores up. When you get really good, you talk about these yogis who can do stuff, with their mind, make their body do stuff. We go into that. We've got 2 chapters totally devoted to just using our mind to opening our pores. We can make our pores open wider. Most people have no clue how to do that. And Joe has studied it inside and out. He's taught me, and we've taught other people. So what we do is while we're standing in the same spot, we open our pores. And not only do we open our pores, we open everything where we can leak water out of. And it just goes into one spot. And then we call it bullfighting. we step back one step, 2 or 3 steps, and that guy's got to come towards us. As he comes towards us, he doesn't have any wrestling shoes on. He's barefoot. He walks into a puddle. Joe calls it the Lake Titicaca takedown. He steps into Lake Titicaca, slips, we're on his back. If he happens to turn over, we move north-south to a good waterboarding. It's over quickly. Joe has really taught me a lot on this and made my game that much better.
It's a complete game.
Yeah. So, really, if you want to learn, tactics like waterboarding and the Lake Titicaca takedown, definitely check out this audiobook.
Yep. These guys are like the Rain Man of jiu-jitsu.
There's one bonus technique we have in the back of the book, because it's not sweat related per se, but it's similar. When you have your opponent's back, one of the best ways to get them to open up and get them to make a mistake and react is the good old wet willy. There's hardly anything that beats it.
And that's when, Joe, what we talked about earlier, just stick it out.
All right.
Hopefully people know what the wet willy is, right? I don't think the wet willy is what you think it is, Gary.
No, I know what the wet willy is. Just stick your finger out.
All right.
There you go.
Yep.
You have to YouTube or Google that one. Don't YouTube anything. Google it if you need to know, and that's not going to be too offensive. But if you're not doing Google, check us out on other social medias. Facebook, YouTube. We even have an app. Go to the App Store and type in BjjBrick. Man, we pop right up. It's great. You can listen to podcasts on there all the time. Anytime. Today even. Trying to do a little bit more Facebook Live. Did one a little while ago, and we got a question from a listener. We kind of bantered back and forth, and Joe answered the question. I was like, I'm just going to answer this question on Facebook Live. And it was fun. It's a little bit different of a challenge to kind of collect your thoughts and then go live with something, but I enjoyed it, and I'll probably do it again. Gary's going to be doing that a lot, right, Gary?
Oh, every night, definitely.
Next week, my friends, we have 2 episodes. We have, the last episode of the month is the kind of the BjjBrick crew bringing you a topic episode, and then the first week of the next month we have an extra episode and a regular episode. So it's 2 packed into 1 week. And I interviewed Joel Bowie. And Joe, who did you bring this for the extra episode?
Jeff Westfall, Rising Phoenix Martial Arts. Jeff's not really your traditional jiu-jitsu guy the way we think of him. He's a traditional martial artist who's added jiu-jitsu to his system, to his game. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt, but unlike some guys, he didn't move away from all the traditional martial arts. He still does Filipino stick fighting and some other things. So really interesting. He's got a podcast, which we'll have a link to when we air the episode. And man, I'd encourage anybody to check that out. It's real interesting. It's called The Martial Brain. So had a good time talking to Jeff. Appreciate him taking time to be on the show.
Yeah, that's awesome. I forgot to mention Joel Bowie real quick. Check out his new DVD, The Falcon Guard, and you'll be impressed by what he's doing there. And we do get into a good conversation about what that is and why he prefers to play the Falcon Guard. Hot off the press, my friends. So hot you might need to go play in the sprinklers. Stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, get better. We'll see you on the mats, guys.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.